Hey, good morning. My name is Gunnar. I work for Salesforce at the platform developer teams, and I have the honor today to talk to you about our latest nice tool that we've building, an extension pack for VS Code that allows you to master Salesforce DX. So, before I start, just a quick reminder to everyone, make your purchasing decisions based on the products that are available today. Thank you. Okay, so who uses or who knows Visual Studio Code? Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so Visual Studio Code, and that's an important thing, is not to be confused with Visual Studio, which is a different product. It is a product from Microsoft, and I'm going to talk about it to explain a few things, and then show you how to install our extensions into it, and then I'll walk through over a couple of very interesting features that I'd like to highlight from our extension that will ease your life with Salesforce DX. All right. So Visual Studio Code is about code editing. It's not a full IDE. It's a lightweight editor, and it has this powerful thing called an extension marketplace built right into itself, which allows to build extensions on top of it, and that's what we do. It's free and open source and available on all three major operating systems. You can get installer for Windows and Mac, as well as Debian and RPM packages for Linux. Just go to the website, code.visualstudio.com, and there you can download and install it. It's very easy to set up. We leverage those extension points that exist in Visual Studio Code to build extension. We've built a couple of extensions for Salesforce DX that simplify your life, coding, editing, and debugging with Salesforce DX. Of course, it's available on the marketplace, right? So you can go to with any browser, you can go to the marketplace, or you go in VS Code. Once you launch it, you go to View Extension and search for Salesforce DX and find our Salesforce extensions for VS Code. It's the extension pack. So there are we split the extensions into multiple individual ones. I highly recommend you get the whole extension pack. It gives you the best experience. And also in the future, if we're going to add new things, they will automatically be available in the extension pack as well. Now, the first feature that is very essential as part of Salesforce DX is the Salesforce CLI. So what we've done is, there's this nice little thing in VS Code called Command Palette, which gives you like any action, any command, anything that you can do in VS Code with a keyboard, just like a keyboard shortcut away. It's a pop-up, and we added the most important Salesforce CLI commands right into the command palette. So when you work with Salesforce DX in VS Code, you actually don't have to fall back to the terminal. You can execute any of those actions right from VS Code. And in case of commands that require some input, we added, we actually query for the input. So when the input is a file in your workspace, we simply scan the workspace for possible candidates and give you a list of proposals to pick from, which makes it very easy to work with the commands. Then, as part of the editing support, we added, we provide syntax highlighting for Apex, Lightning components, and Visualforce, and also code completion for all those three. And for Apex, we actually also added things like a code outline, and you can jump to definitions. It's very convenient if you're coding in VS Code and have those features available at your fingertips. Last but not least, the latest addition is debugging capabilities. Who've used the Apex debugger before? Quite a few. Okay, this gives you real-time debugging of Apex code that's been executed in your Scratch org. I think that's amazing, because you can, like, you set breakpoints, you connect to the Scratch org, you execute the code, and then you can step through it you can inspect the variables, and you can investigate really what's going on. All right. So I think it's time for a little demo to actually show what I'm talking about. So here's Visual Studio Code. That's the editor. By the way, it's colorful. You don't have to use the dark theme. You can also use the white theme that I'm doing here. On the left side, that's a very simple SFDX project. The project, we have a couple of example projects available in our force.com GitHub organization. They're open source. You can use them and try them out yourself. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you the command palette. It's Command-Shift-P on the Mac. It's Control-Shift-P elsewhere. And what we did, we prefixed all the Salesforce commands with SFDX. So just by typing SFDX, you get you narrow down the list of possible commands to the one that targets Salesforce DX. On the top, I find it very handy. It organizes the most recent used and the often used, so it's very quick to navigate through them. But there's a lot of other commands down below that you can just scroll them and execute them, or you just type. And it filters the list for you, right? Oh, and by the way, our extension pack is completely open source. So if you have a command and you would like it to add to the command palette, please submit a pull request. First thing I'm going to do is I'm creating a scratch org. And as I promised earlier, we scan the workspace for possible files that contain the scratch org configuration. And so I pick one. I can enter an alias. I don't have to. I just leave it blank. And what you actually see in the output console, that this command is executing natively the Salesforce CLI. So we don't do any magic. We just go straight to the CLI and execute it. And we give you the output down below in the output window. So you can trace what's going on. You can see the output of the command. There's nothing hidden from it. You just see it right away. So it's easy for you. Of course, there's also feedback on the top that says if the command executed successfully or not. OK, another nice thing, if you are in a workspace and you have a scratch org being created, I like it a lot, you can just open the org. And what's happened is, again, it executes the command, it opens the browser window, it connects to the org. And I'm authenticated and can start right away working. Another command that, of course, is necessary for the demo as well. Once we have the org being created, we should push some source code to it. And here again, it's just Command-Shift-P, push, done. Right? I don't need to type anything a lot. It's just pushing all the data that I have in my workspace right to the org. OK, so now I've done the initial push. Let's actually look at the Apex editing feature. So you may have already noticed the Apex class files are decorated with a nice little cloud icon. That's how you realize that the plugin is actively working. So what we did is we hooked our Apex language server into VS Code, and it gives you not just syntax highlighting, it also gives you some advanced features. And one that I like a lot is the intelligent code completion. This is not just keyword based. It's really sensitive to the actual location I'm in the file. So I can invoke the content assist, and it populates with all the things that are visible in the current context that I'm working in. It supports types that are available in the workspace as well, right? So the whole thing, and that's important, like the whole code completion and all that stuff, the language server works offline. So I don't have to be connected to an org to actually use it. I can develop Apex code offline on an airplane or on a train. I just can't test it. Because I need an org for that. OK, so The other thing, I'm not sure if you noticed, there's a red underline here under the if keyboard. And also, if you go to the problems view, or if you just hover over the if, we do syntax checking. We can do syntax checking offline. It's just syntax checking for now. It's not doing other checking offline, but it's a first step, right? So you can make sure that your Apex classes are syntactically correct before doing an attempt to push them. And then again, I see the variable here, and I do get completions on all the possible interactions that I can do with a specific type. Okay, so let's push that again. Another interesting feature I want to highlight is if you're working in a more larger project, sometimes the class files tend to be the files tend to get a little bit longer, and as well there's more classes than just 2 or 3. So you wonder how to easily navigate. What we do support is just by clicking the command or the control button, you can actually then hover over any type or a method or whatever and click on it, and it jumps right to its definition. So if you navigate a large code base, I find that very, very useful. And as part of that, another feature that I really like a lot is the quick outline or open symbol. It's Command-Shift-O on the Mac or Control-Shift-O on Windows. That gives you a list of all the symbols that are defined in the file. And you can easily navigate them. And as I am navigating, I'm not sure if you realize, this yellow line, VS Code is scrolling or jumping to the file. So I no longer have to organize the methods in my class alphabetically or in some sort of order. I just use the quick outline or go to simple, and I'm immediately in a specific method. Okay. Now let's look at how the debugger works. The debug support in Visual Studio Code is pretty common. It's like the language support. It's standardized on a common layer. So no matter if you're debugging Apex code or JavaScript code or Java code, it's the same UI, it's the same interface, and it's also pretty simple, similar to other debuggers that exist out in the world. I've created a launch shortcut here initially that is basically connecting to the org. Oh, of course, I've provisioned a new Scratch org, and that Scratch org doesn't have the permissions yet to actually allow me to debug the code. But I'm not sure if you have realized, in my workspace, I've included a permission set for Apex debugging. So really, all I have to do right now is I need to assign that permission set to my user. And this is a command that's not yet in the command palette, but it will be there soon, trust me. And in case you miss something, there's also the terminal in VS Code. So you can fall back to the terminal if you have to and interact with your workspace from within VS Code. And the interesting thing is, because we are using the Salesforce CLI natively, the authentication context, the default Scratch org context is shared. It is the same. So you don't have to deal with anything. It's the same workspace. It just works out of the box. Okay. Now that succeeded. Let's launch it again. And this time, in the debug console, you can actually follow the debug server, what's going on. Okay, it's connected, and we've started a debugging session. Now let's trigger some Apex code. And when the breakpoint is hit on the server in the Scratch org, we get a notification. Our extensions get a notification from Salesforce, and so we can give focus to the editor and jump right to the source, to the line of source where I defined, set the breakpoint before. So I can step over the execution, and anytime something is executed on the server, it just works, right? we can also do step into code. I'm using the step into this way. So I'm now in the method. And one interesting thing that you realize, if there's a system debug statement on the server, the output is added right into in the console. So you don't have to investigate some log files. You can view like the system debug output right in the console in VS Code. I think that's very convenient, especially when you are tracing down a problem. Okay, last thing I'd like to show is the variables in the debugger. Let's just populate a little bit more. Yep, I have a breakpoint down here. So what we added is we allow you to drill down in the types, in the variables that are visible in the context. So in this case, there are local variables, but we also populate statics that are defined in the class. And in case of sets or maps, you can drill down to the keys as well and the values separately. All right, two quick things in the end. Of course, as I promised initially, like all those editing features that are available to Apex are also available to VS Code and Lightning components. All right, and with that, there's a few more resources that you can go to. There's a really, really nice trailhead on Salesforce DX. There's a link to to the central website, which contains anything. And I've also put in a link to our VS Code extensions. Thanks very much for attention. I'll be down here waiting for questions. So if you have any, just come in the front and ask me. And also, I'm giving. We have a lot of demos also of this tool at our Salesforce DX booth. So if you have additional questions about Salesforce DX or VS Code, just visit us at the booth. I'll be there tomorrow, 3 till 6 p.m. And for those of you that using the Force.com IDE Eclipse plugin, I'll give another session Thursday morning, about the similarities and differences between Eclipse and VS Code. So when you migrate from Eclipse to VS Code, that might be an interesting talk for you as well to attend. Thank you very much.